One of my favorites. Took me a while to catch up on it. Mark Lyons, always great to talk to you. Let's talk about the season that is 4-4 overall, 4-1 in the conference. You were banged up early. Big win against Quaker Valley, and then of course you're back in action this week against Hopewell. Just kind of get me caught up on some Central Valley football.
Gotcha. When the schedule came out, we knew it was going to be a little bit of a grind. Even though we dropped down to 3A, we start out with 4 powerhouses in 4A.
Yeah.
Starting with Montour, then TJ, and then Bell Vernon. And we weren't using it as a crutch or an excuse. I still felt we should have got 2 out of 3 at some point. Definitely 1 out of 3, but that didn't happen. So we were in some waters that we weren't used to swimming in. And credit to our coaching staff, credit to our guys. We kind of regrouped, looked at the big picture, continued to move forward, and still understood the purpose of the season and what it brings to us and where we want to end up. And here we are.
So I'm reading in the Beaver County Times today, amongst a bunch of other things, getting ready for the radio tonight, off to Geneva College, then New Brighton later. Big day tomorrow. We're going to be with Coach Carey at North Hills, Art Walker Jr. of NA, and Johnny Ladon with Pine Richland after their late night practice. So we got a busy couple of days between radio and here. But the Times is talking about adding wildcard teams this year to the postseason.
Sure.
We're going to mix it up a little bit. You and I are a couple of old dogs. We remember back in the day when the Gardner point system. So the bottom line is, let's just get there. Once you get there, everything starts over. So what you've done to this point, sure, you'd like to have had a couple more wins, but you still are 4-1 in the conference, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And we're taking care of business where we need to. Obviously, we got beat by a very good Avonworth team in our conference. Prior to that, I thought we played one of our better games against Beaver, who's a top conference team. So, that's the nature of conference play. And we still talk to our guys about, when those leaves start to fall, we want to still be playing. We want to be at our best. And I really do believe how this all shook out, that we're starting to find our footing, and we're trending in that direction I'd like for us to trend into.
You will. Listen, speaking of some of them teams you started the season with, how about Aliquippa and Montour going at it for the Parkway Conference League?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody had that mark from the get-go. This could be a possibility, and here we are, 7-8 weeks later, and it's happening. You got 2 very good football teams. They're familiar with each other. They're used to having success. I've seen both of them live in person against our teams for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and it should be a great matchup. I think the talent level on both groups are going to be the equalizer. I honestly believe whoever wins the upfront matchups is going to win this football game.
I'm going to just talk to you about a bunch of things while we have some time here. Fitz, that young man, listen, he lives down the street from me. I know his mom and dad forever, his family. I couldn't be more happy. And obviously 93.7, the fans, the flagship home of Pitt. They are it. They take on Syracuse a week from tomorrow. They're undefeated, and he's been seeing some action, and you were kind of giving me a little bit of the lowdown. How proud are you of him?
Yeah, listen, I'm extremely proud, knowing what he has gone through. I mean, let's just back up a little bit. Last year, he thought he was going to get in the rotation, then he gets a nagging ankle injury, which kind of lingered throughout the year. This year, he comes in great health, great shape. He's having a phenomenal camp, and unfortunately, the practice I decided to go to, he tweaks his knee that cost him 4 weeks at the beginning of this season, and he was down in the dumps for a while, but the support of his mom and dad and Sean himself being strong-minded, very dedicated, and still understands the life of the college game. He rehabbed himself, and for him to not played a game at the beginning of the year at all, and as soon as he gets a clean bill of health, gets inserted in the starting, that says a lot about the trust the coaching staff had him. And the minute he got the clean bill of health, probably could have played a little bit in the Youngstown State game, held him out, said he'd have 2 full weeks because he had the bye week after that. And he came back, and I tell you what, I texted him the night before, and he was chomping at the bit for the North Carolina game. And knock on wood, he hasn't turned back yet in the last couple of weeks.
You realize what you've done since this program merged with Monaca. I mean, you got Jordan now, obviously, in the pros. You got Sean playing at D1. Look, we're used to Aliquippa doing this sort of thing, but it was Center High School, Monaca. I mean, the Flemings and a few others have made noise, and you've seen those who have played at that next level. But my goodness gracious, you can't be more proud of some of these athletes.
Yeah.
Not everybody makes it to that pinnacle, but it's pretty exciting what you've been able to do here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been a nice. I thought it was, we've talked about this numerous times, you and I, about the merger and what it's meant to both communities and how it's taken off. I tell you time and time again, and I'll always say this, I've been fortunate. I think timing's everything. I think it was the right time. It was a great situation. And, we've had our share of not only good athletes, but good kids that came from great families and that gave everything to this program. And not only the names that you've mentioned, we've had other guys who've benefited from this program that are doing phenomenal things at the next level, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3. So we have a lot of guys that are just scattered amongst the collegiate game. And, it's nice when they come back and visit to see their successes. That's the big thing. That's the thing I'm starting to enjoy more of.
You see some of these young athletes, and obviously many of these coaches now that I covered them when they were players, and you've seen the same thing. One of the things that I've been talking a lot about lately are the numbers and what's happening with high school football. And I was talking to a friend of mine who happens to be a CEO for a major company, and I said, I'd surely like to find a way to be able to give money to some of the smaller schools so they can have a good field house, so they can have a good playing surface, they can have a nice stadium. When you and Mr. Matsuk and this whole crew came together and this merger went down, it just was seamless and it just worked out good for everyone. But even you have to realize some of these 1A schools, and I've talked to Gene Matsuk about this, it's tough being able to get the equipment that you need and even to get kids and have enough of a roster to be able to put a football team out there. So numbers really are playing into the future of high school football.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, the resources, not everybody has the same resources, obviously. And, that's a challenge in itself. I still believe this, and that's where I started. I think some of the great coaches come from Class A because they have to do more than just coach the game of football. They have to adapt. They have to find other resources. They have to kind of be creative in ways of creating a competitive practice, but yet dealing it with less numbers and less resources. So, it's been going on for years. I'm not so sure it's going to change. That's just the nature of the game, the landscape of the game where we're at. But, I still think the game of football is in a great shape where it's at right now. I think social media, even though it has probably caused a little bit of headaches, it's also helped the game in a sense to keep marketing it and bringing players there. I think we have to manage it a little better at all aspects. But like just anything else that comes in new fads, there's always the positives and the negatives.
Yeah, Allegheny Health Network, Highmark, people like M7, Coons Quality Foods. So many people sponsor our broadcast. The signature sponsor, Power of Bowser, Friday Night Football. You got NA and Pine Richland. Art Walker, you remember his dad, but how about Johnny Ladon and that family and his playing days in Aliquippa and at Robert Morris? It's just nice to see these stories unfold.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a tremendous job. Going back where he was at Shaler, I think that's where he cut his teeth as a head coach.
Right. Penn Hills.
Again, you look at coaches, at some point you have to be able to go through adversity. You shouldn't always just get your first job and think it's going to be that easy. You have to grind a little bit and see some of those valleys so you understand you don't want to spend any time down there anymore. You just want to work on climbing that peak. And like I said, he's cut his teeth at Shaler, and I'm sure he figured a lot of things out when he had his opportunity. He got to a Penn Hills program that he was able to shape and mold what he thought, and obviously took him to a state championship title. And that's going to happen sooner than later when he's there at Pine Richland.
Listen, you've had to deal with some quarterback situations this year. Insert one because of one getting banged up a little bit. So quarterback is still so important at every level. But being that I don't have a chance to talk to Coach Tomlin, let me get your thoughts on this. And this is very curious because I've been seeing this lately about since his press conference yesterday saying that maybe Russell Wilson could go this week. And then somebody said something early today that really piqued my interest. And it's Jeff Saturday, the former player. He said, sometimes you see things at practice that make you realize that they're going to be able to transition that from the practice field to the playing field. What exactly does he mean by that?
Yeah, that's probably a very valid point. I'm sure there's plays, throughout the game every Sunday that Fields probably didn't hit things that were open, missed some plays that we don't see, the naked eye doesn't see, the fan doesn't see. Might have got something positive, maybe a check down, maybe him scrambling, but at the end of the day, maybe they missed a big play, a splash play. And who knows, they may see that from Russell Wilson in practice that they don't see. So, as a head coach, as a quarterback coach, somebody overseeing that part of the game, you see the qualities each individual brings. And even though you may not see it every game, you see it daily in practice. And when you have to make those decisions, at times the only thing you have is those practice reps. And you have to go with those sometimes.
It's important, right?
It is very important. That's why we practice. I mean, that's why we're out there. So I'm sure they've got enough valid, not so much data, but visual data of watching him perform that they can go to another level. And I think that's everybody's goal as a head coach is getting your team to go to another level. And whatever button you have to push, you have to unturn that stone and push that button.
All right, before I let you go, Hopewell, obviously still trying to figure it out, but this is one that you can't take your foot off the pedal. This could really turn you upside down. You got to be full throttle.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, they're a different Hopewell team. They're playing harder. You can see the minute you put on the tape, you can see the difference. Those guys got them playing harder. They're playing whistle to whistle. So that's what we've kind of messaged to our guys.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, we know where we need to go. We know where we're headed. We got to make sure we continue to trend that way. And I think, I talked to our players just yesterday about this. I think here's the big thing, and this is difficult in today's day and age. I said, I can tell every one of you, and this is a positive thing, I know exactly your role on this football team. If you don't know your role, ask me, because I'm going to tell you right now, all 30 of you are sitting here in this film session as a varsity player right now in the rotation. I know exactly what you bring to this team. And every one of you brings something positive. I said, so that's a good thing. I said, I finally got the pulse of this football team. I know exactly what we need to do. I said, so number one, I want to commend you because you're working to get to that. Number two, take that as a positive, what I'm telling you. Everybody's got a piece of this puzzle. An important piece.
It's that recipe of success. Last thing. So I interviewed Jim Rankin last week, and you all remember Jim Rankin, Elway City, NA, some old school. And I'm going to try to sprinkle some of those gentlemen in as we move our way through this season. But I want to ask you, not necessarily coaches, but players growing up in Monaca, who did you really idolize as a kid? I mean, I know who I have, like the Poe Jameses of the world.
It's funny you said that. Scotty McKill was one that really idolized. I mean, he was that splash type of running back. We pretty much trended, kind of watched him, hung around practices after games. Everybody wanted his wristbands and gloves and that type of thing. So if I had to pick one, that was probably one. But there was a lot of guys on that team, that 76 team that did well. I can still stick out. They have those baby blue pants, LaFossa brought that color back with a sprinkle of red. So that was a unique era to watch as a kid, to grow up and then watch that unfold. And it's funny because a lot of those guys that played, I became pretty good friends with.
Yeah.
And I've played golf with and played some softball with growing up, those types of things. So if there was one, I'd probably have to say Scott McKill. If I had to pick a number two, I always gravitated to Gerard Dussel because I thought he was a pretty neat player. He's a lefty, playing quarterback. So those two I thought were guys that I probably looked up, especially in the game of football, obviously.
So were you ever on any of those epic flag football teams?
I was. It's
Chong
funny.
And Frankie Snyder?
Yeah, I'm talking back. I even got to play with Scotty and the Scaz and the Fawcett's.
Well, that's going to be an
Deuce-
Olympic sport now, this flag football. I mean, you guys,
back then it wasn't considered Olympic.
No.
It was just a sport that taverns and bars would
Tony
sponsor.
Celeste.
Yeah. And I can remember,
epic games.
I think I played probably a half a season, and it was kind of like a badge of honor. They respected your game, so they kind of brought you on board. That was unique about Monaca is if you earned their respect as an athlete and doing the right things, age was not a discrepancy.
Mm-mm.
They didn't care. You were all in. They brought you in under that canopy.
Last thing. So, Coach Rach and so many others. I mean, I have a lot of great memories of Monaca, and you obviously on the sidelines. But why have I been thinking a lot about Al Guandola lately? I mean, when you think of this town and success, Friday nights and classic games, rolling over from Chong's, yard party to that football field, I just see with the headphones, I see Al Guandola. What was up with Al Guandola?
Yeah, it's funny you bring it up because I was just talking to my staff about, where I started and how it was and trying to incorporate some of those things about what it was like to be an assistant. And he gave me that opportunity. And when he gave me that opportunity, and I could sit here and talk hours about the time him and I spent and what he has done for me. But the biggest thing was he brought me along to every function as a coach and got me into the inner circle of the Carl Flores, God bless his soul, Larry Bruno, Pat Tarquinio, Rich Neobala.
So that was your doorway.
So that he brought me in telling all of them, hey, this is my assistant. He's part of that. And I got to sit around, whether it was at a meeting or an event, and just hang with those guys and listen and be a sponge. And that's what I try to tell our coaches. I didn't say, I talk a lot now. They think everybody tells me I shut up.
You're the best. I could listen all day.
I listened there. All I did was a sponge. I was afraid to go home because I might miss something. And those guys were, they were legends. They could stay out till 12 o'clock, 12:30 and be at school and deliver a dynamite history lesson.
Absolutely.
They didn't miss a beat. I'm a young guy. I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this tomorrow at school.
Right.
But I was afraid I was going to miss something. But as I didn't realize, I did at the time, but it was really important to me when I became a head coach because there was a vivid memory. My first camp at Monaca, I'm young, I'm excited, but I see two guys walking down by the baseball field, down to the practice field, and it was Larry Bruno, Carl Flores.
Oh.
They came down and they just wanted to make sure, you all right? You need anything? Don't forget the full house. Don't forget what we talked about. Just giving me wanting me to succeed. And I've coached against him as a young assistant.
Wow.
But that's what Alan gave to me, allowed me to be part of that coaching community where I've learned so much from a napkin, on the back of a napkin.
I know. Look, with all due respect, no doubt, Carl Flores, you think of Joe Hamilton, you think of Larry Bruno.
Yeah, I can go on and on.
But you got to think about Al Guandola.
Well, yeah, he was, like I said, he brought me along and exposed me to all that. When he found out, when I jumped on board as a volunteer assistant, and he pulled me aside and said, listen, if this is something you want to do, I think you got a pretty good knack. Get your butt back in the college, get your teaching degree. Because back then, that's how it worked. You're supposed to be a teacher and a coach. He pushed me back. I went back to school, got my teaching degree, and obviously, I'm glad I did it. But he was the guide to all that, and he saw something in me. And I even shared this with my coaches. He coached me. I mean, he was tough on me. I mean, he was a father figure to me. Love my dad, in so many different ways. But Al was that second dad when I was in the game of football. Well, he's still trying to play some pickleball. That competitive sport. We went from playing basketball. Now everybody wants to play pickleball. And,
I get it.
He's slowing down a little bit, but
what a good man.
Yeah. So it's all good.
All right. Before I let you go, this is so exciting to have a chance to catch up with you because he's been on my radar for weeks, but I've just been so busy. This is still a great community. Monaca, man, rolling up over the hill, coming from Atlantic Avenue, driving through this town. This time of year, I just love Monaca.
Yeah, it's a cool area. Beaver County in itself is a pretty neat
area.
Man.
It is. Best of luck.
I appreciate it.
The great Mark Lyons. We'll be
Thanks.
back in a little bit. Tommy Contenta going to be pinch hitting for Gino DeMarco today when we visit him at Reeves Stadium. And then, of course, later we'll be up on Oak Hill where Coach John McCouga is doing some pretty good things with those New Brighton Lions. And then back on the radio tonight at 6. Don't forget the power of Bowser. Friday Night Lights this week. It's a big one. It's NA and Pine Richland. Quest for the best. Dan Zangrilli, Mike White tomorrow night at 6 on KDK. It's your Pratt Pack. Coons Quality Food Sports Reports this weekend. Got that Coons Market here in Hopewell and the Coons Market Black and Gold Sunday show each and every week after local news at 11. And there's always more sports at 93.7thefan.com. Have a great day.